Hello everyone, welcome to Exploring Tarot. My name is Sandi, and today we are going to be exploring the hashtag comforting decks for uncertain times by initiated by Moonlight Arcana here on YouTube. Now, before we get going, I have to apologize. My voice might give in. I've been ill for the past few days, and I'm a little bit raspy, as you probably can hear. And I'm just gonna have to take it slow and take some breaks and edit out any potential coughing. Yeah, I got COVID a few days ago, and so far it's been quite mild, but started out very small, and now it's just been gradually getting a little bit worse. And my coughing started the other day, but I do feel that I'm gonna come through it quite unscathed, because I still haven't had much of a fever. I had just a slight temperature rise yesterday, but nothing to be alarmed about. So I'm feeling quite lucky in that regard. Anyway, enough about sickness and corona, and on to the comforting decks that I have in my collection so far. So I thought I would start with my tarot decks, and then we could go on to oracle decks afterwards. First tarot deck I'm going to show you is the Spiritsong Tarot by Paulina Cassidy, or Paulina Faye. And I have trimmed my copy of this deck. Now, the decks I've chosen for this tag is I've chosen them based partly on how they make me feel, partly on the artwork itself, and also partly on how the guidebook reads and what messages the guidebook gives me. So, the first deck here is the Spiritsong Tarot, like I said, and I just find that Paulina's artwork, let me zoom in a little bit for you. I just find that Paulina's artwork is just so gentle, and especially in this deck here, it's just all of these pastel-y colours really just feels so comforting to me. Even the cards that are usually a little bit difficult, they feel like they give comfort. And then they also have these keywords: power, perseverance for 9 of Acorns, and truth and clarity for justice. Such as it is, I just find this deck very, very warm and gentle and comforting in a lot of ways. The guidebook as well gives you a lot of tender advice, and I'm going to find a card here for us. One that might sometimes be a bit challenging, perhaps. Now that she's renamed the death card to transformation, and usually I don't like that. I usually prefer it when death is called death, but in this case, I can get on board with it. Let's put that one aside. Let's just look at if we can find a different one as well. Yes. So looking at the 10 of Feathers, which is the 10 of Swords in the Spiritsong Tarot. So the keywords are recovery and transformation, and the message here for the snake is: a master of spiritual renewal, Snake slides through change with minimal effort as he sheds negativity and transmutes into something self-empowering. In releasing destructive energies, Snake transforms from a lower vibration to a higher one. Snake will assist you through a metamorphosis and will help you regain your focus in the process. By casting away old ways of thinking that hold you back, your upward spiral will begin. Your reality depends on your perspective. Let yourself surrender to change, and you will discover that revival within has begun. Now, so I feel that this guidebook really gives you some comforting messages as well. And I just really think of this as a very comforting deck. Right, next up we've got the Oak, Ash and Thorn. Now there's just a little guidebook that comes with this. That's a PDF guidebook that I've printed out, but nonetheless I think in this deck it's mostly the artwork that conveys the comforting nature of this deck. I have recently put this deck back in order for my own study's sake. I have not read much with this yet, even though I've had it in my collection since the Kickstarter. I mean, this is the Kickstarter version. And there is something about this deck. It's dark, but at the same time I do find it very comforting. I have a love for animal decks, and I think that's probably part of why, but I think this Chariot, for example, I just get such a comforting energy, and this Strength card as well, even though there's this snake here, and he just looks so calm, this badger. And this Hermit card is one of my favorite hermits ever. I love hedgehogs, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's because of this is also a very comforting card. I think it's because, it's nature, it's animals and what they go through, and it's all the ups and the downs, and it's just gives me a comfort to I don't know, I think it's the woods. I can't explain why this deck makes me feel comforted, but it does. It's pretty. It's got these lovely warm watercolors. Some of them make me laugh. This little squirrel being all pessimistic. Yeah. Do. And I don't know what it is about the Eight of Cups, but the Eight of Cups always, no matter what deck it is, it always makes me feel relief and comfort. It's a bit weird. But yeah, there we are. So this was the Oehlers and Thorn by Stephanie Burrows and Adam Oehlers. Next up is another animal deck. And that's the Guardian of the Night Tarot by MJ Cullinane. Now, this deck is comforting to me mostly because of how this deck helped me through a very difficult time in my life. I have read with this deck during some trying times, and even though maybe the artwork itself or the guidebook might not be very comforting, it's just because of my experience with it and the help that it's given me during that difficult time period, that makes this deck such a comforting one for me. The artwork is quite dark sometimes, but it's also always beautiful and thought-provoking, and I love the animal choices that MJ has done for this deck, and she explains the choices really well in her guidebook as well. Now this is the indie version, so, and when I bought this deck, the book did not come with the deck, so I had to buy the book separately, and no regrets there. The book is really, really good in my opinion, and yeah, I really loved to hear all the anecdotes she had about why she chose different animals for this deck. Love this card. And the Queen of Swords. So, yeah. I will forever love this deck for what it did for me, and I've actually not read with it for a while now because I just feel like this deck I go to for very deep questions because of that, but I really should read with it more. It's so gorgeous, and I don't know, I really do love it. So that was the Guardian of the Night Tarot by MJ Cullinane. Next up on my comforting deck list, it might be a little bit of a surprise for some of you, but it's this little deck over here, and this is the Dennis Fairchild tarot that comes in this tiny little box that you can get off of these like little shelves in bookshops right by the counter, by the till. And I don't know why I would choose this, but it was like when I was going through the decks to choose for this tag, this deck just immediately came to mind because much like the Guardian of the Night Tarot, I've read with this deck a few times when I've really needed some guidance, and the simplicity of this deck, as well as the really simple little write-ups in this guidebook, have provided a lot of comfort for me, and I just also think the little ditty size makes it a little bit of a comfort for me, because I don't have to struggle holding this deck or shuffling this deck at all because of my tiny hands. And the artwork is relatable and simple and doesn't try to be something extra. It's just, yeah, I really do appreciate this little deck quite a lot, and we can try. I can pull a little card and read from the guidebook for you, so that you will understand what I mean when I say that I find this deck comforting. Let's make a quick little shuffle. Let me zoom out. Right, so pull a card for this. There we go. Right, so we've got the Four of Pentacles. With the little piggy. And the Four of Pentacles reads: manage your money with firm ethics. Respect those in power, but do not accept intimidation. Your ideas are rich, but still need development. When reversed, the demands of personal security weigh heavily on you now. Confusion and loss are likely if you let greed or insecurity take over. Challenge and opposition are on the horizon. Meet them head on. Now, this might not have been the best description or the best card to read for you, but I don't know. Whenever I've done a reading, with a spread, this little deck has always been very spot on and very comforting to me. So, yeah, this is definitely one of my comforting decks. Next up in my comforting deck list is the Tarot of the Enchanted Forest. And here we have a deck that is mostly about the artwork being comforting to me. The guidebook is lovely. It paints a picture in words for you as well, describing the situation. I love this artist's art overall. I follow her on Instagram, and her name is Meraylah, I'm sure. I'm gonna put her name up here, and the creator's name as well. But yeah, the artwork in this, I feel, is comforting. Much probably the same as I felt that the Oak, Ash and Thorn was comforting. There's a woodland scenes. There are woodland creatures, lots of rabbits and owls, and the people in this look very approachable and friendly most of the time. They look like real people. I mean, as in the sense of they all have a very special, like a look to their faces, like they're not stylized or made overly beautiful just for the sake of the art. I find that decks like that kind of irk me, but these decks that show you people's emotions and show them the texture of the skin and the wrinkles, the age of the people. This is a giant, but I adore this artwork and do find that this deck gives me comfort when I look at it. So yeah, that was the Tarot of the Enchanted Forest. Trying not to make this video so super long, but you know me, I'm probably gonna rattle on. Alright, next up in my comforting decks is the Gaian Tarot. This deck just has this super grandmotherly feel to me, and I have trimmed and edged this deck So, but it just gives me a very soft and comforting grandmotherly feel. Most of the time, I mean, this card, maybe not. But overall, this deck is a very comforting, gentle energy to have around. Like, this card reminds me of Granddad, and yeah, it's just happy in the happy cards, and it's challenging in the challenging cards, and then it's got this really soft vibe to some of the cards. It just really gives you this sense of being in this community where people are kind to each other and help each other out and are living part of, taking part of nature, taking care of it, raising families together as a community, building and making things together, making music, going on spiritual journeys. It's just it's just got such a comforting energy, this deck, and I really appreciate it for that. So yeah, that was the Gaian Tarot. Right, and the last deck in my tarot comforting tarot decks is this one, and that is the Gentle Tarot by Mari in the Sky. This is a very new deck in my collection, and still haven't worked too much with it yet, but the readings I have done with it have been very comforting and very warm and just encouraging overall. I adore this artwork, and Mari herself is just so kind, so helpful with your questions, and just the loveliest person you're gonna meet on the internet, to be honest. She has been so kind and replies to all of your posts about the deck and stuff like that. It's just, she's really, really awesome. And I think that also influences a lot about how you view a deck when you know that the artist and the creator behind it is a lovely person, And but back to the artwork. The artwork is very comforting in the fact, again, because it's so close to nature, and I think you've seen a thread here in that I am feeling very close to and comforted by natural, nature decks, nature-inspired decks, animal decks, earthy decks, and yeah, I really do adore the way that she writes as well. The guidebook is very lovely and comforting, and I can't wait to get my hands on the big guidebook that she's released recently. And yeah, love this card. Amazing. So that was the Gentle Tarot by Mari in the Sky. Now on to the Oracle decks in my collection that I find comforting, and the first one I'm going to show you is not new. I've told you about this deck before. That's the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Baron-Reid. Now, I'm not a big Colette Baron-Reid fan. This is in fact the only deck by her that I have. Most of her other decks don't speak to me at all. And this deck is also one that I have modified. Oops. but in this case, this guidebook and the messages on these cards and the artwork itself to some degree, I find very comforting. I love the fact that it's like the whale spirit that gives me the message, and the guidebook is written in a very considerate and warm, kind-hearted way as well. And yeah, I really do appreciate this deck for what it's done for me. Again, this is a deck that's given me a lot of comfort throughout some difficult times, so it's become like a very nostalgic deck for me. Otter Spirit, you are never alone. You know, things like that. Vulture Spirit, nothing is wasted. It just gives you I mean, even if you don't have time to read the guidebook, or you don't want to read the guidebook, just the little key phrases on here give so much comfort to me as well. Just gonna flip through so you can see some more of the cards. So yeah, not much else to say about this. The guidebook has quite a long write-up, so I'm not going to read from the guidebook in this video because it's just going to become so long. But yeah, I really do appreciate this deck for its comforting vibes. So that was the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Baron-Reid. Next up we have the Inner Star Oracle and the Inner Star Oracle. Now I have the box, but it's put away somewhere. I have this in a little stand at the moment because I use it quite often, and this is by Joe Klima. And this deck I find comforting in a sense that it's got very comforting colours, calming colours, and the messages themselves and the artwork also just has this very calm inducing effect on me. In the morning I like to pull a card just to reflect on it for a little bit and maybe read the little snippet in the guidebook. And I just, I really appreciate this deck for the colours and the sigils on the front. I love basically everything about this deck. It's it's the one deck that I'm using instead of there's another deck that has a very similar take on having some kind of photo imposed, like a low transparency, or high transparency photo. Like you can see there's a parrot. And then having a sigil or something else on top, and now I can't remember. I'll put the name here. And I haven't been able to get that deck because the shipping is very expensive and the deck itself is very expensive. And I was lucky to get this deck through second hand. So I didn't have to pay for shipping from Australia, where I think this creator is based. But yeah, I really do appreciate this deck, even though it can be a little bit, hippie-ish and boho sometimes. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's called for, but for example, if we shall read the Transcend the Limits card here. So, each write-up comes with a little picture of the card, then a little write-up and an affirmation. So, Transcend the limits. There is so much lying beyond the limits we place on our simple experiences of life, most of which we could never possibly imagine. If you just knew how important you are, that you chose this particular journey in time and space. Imagine that the forces of the universe are forever guiding you to transcend an ordinary experience. Can you open your mind up to the possibilities? Affirmation. I discover and transcend the limits of the possible by looking beyond them to the impossible. So, that was just a little taste of what the guidebook sounds like, and I find this deck very comforting. Last but not least is the Soul's Journeys Lesson Cards by James van Praagh. I think you say it like that? Van Praagh. Anyway, this deck I also have out on my desk, so the box is somewhere else. But this deck I've spoken of in one of my previous recent videos actually, and I just find this deck very comforting in the messages that it gives me. There's this keyword, a key phrase, and then a write-up in the guidebook. And I always find some kind of solace, some kind of wisdom coming from this deck, no matter what situation and why I'm pulling a card. I just really, really appreciate this deck. It gives me such clarity and comfort, and helps me approach difficult subjects and difficult thoughts head on. Like this denial, a very difficult feeling. And it says, I acknowledge my fear, but I replace it with the insight of awareness. Or loneliness. I know that I am never alone. Let's read about loneliness in the guidebook. I've been feeling quite lonely these past few days because I've been isolating due to Corona, so this is a very good card to read about. So, loneliness. I know that I am never alone. This card has come to you because you must be reminded that there is a difference between being lonely and being alone. Feelings of loneliness originate from a sense of not appreciating the most important person in your life, you. If solitude seems like an affliction, you need to work on creating a healthy relationship with yourself. Only then will you attract others who will nurture your soul. If you don't develop a healthy relationship with yourself first, you will only draw unhealthy relationships to you. To create a healthy, positive relationship with yourself, you must begin to feel worthy of love. The pessimism of this physical dimension can affect your self-esteem if you don't have the strong conviction that you are valuable and meaningful. Don't view solitude as a weakness. It is merely your soul telling you that it is time to do some inner work and re-evaluate your path before you start to shine. As you sit in the silence of your soul, you will realize that your spirit, family, teachers, and guides are with you. You are never alone. Now, this might sound, a little bit, cliche. I agree with you. This card, the write-up for this card could have been better. I say now after presenting this and being really, happy about this deck. But I am of the conviction that we do deserve love, even though we don't love ourselves, and we can be loved even though we can't love ourselves. That is just a fact of life. But I do believe that solitude can be beneficial for us, and loneliness can come in many forms. And I also kind of appreciate that I do get these, conflicting emotions when I read the guidebook as well, because if I do, I find it a perfect situation to journal about it. And yeah, so all in all, this deck does give me quite a lot. Now, I said that this was the last deck, and it is, but I did want to do an honorable mention, or like a bonus deck, and that is the Woodland Wardens Oracle. This is brand new. My previous video was the the unboxing of this deck, and oops, I've modified this deck so it just slides about in here. I might need to make a bag for it instead. But anyway, the reason why I included this deck in my comforting decks lineup is because the artwork in this just gives me comfort, and I just feel, I don't know, look at this bear's eyes. Doesn't he look just like the kindest, warmest emperor type creature? I just love him, and I just find this artwork and I'm having a hard time explaining myself here. I haven't read much with this deck yet, so I can't really say for sure that it's comforting, but the first thing I thought of was those eyes, those brown eyes of that bear. And I do find a lot of these cards comforting. Even though the keywords are quite, challenging. Let's read about deceit here. We have the coyote and the datura deceit. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this deck is just not comforting at all. Like I said, I only just gotten it, and let's see if we can find deceit here. Here we are. In the Victorian language of flowers, datura warns of deceitful charms. It's a beautiful flower, but extremely poisonous, and said to be an ingredient in the salve that allows witches to fly on their broomstick. Likewise, coyotes are often depicted as tricksters known for their slyness and cunning. Beware of the charming strangers before opening up to someone new. Consider what they may have to gain from your trust. Now is the time to trust your instincts. If your gut is telling you that something isn't right, heed the warning. And then we have these little journal prompts. Whom can I trust? And how do I show others I am worthy of their trust? I think the write-ups aren't very comforting, obviously. The artwork can be quite dark, and the keywords can be quite dark. So no, it's not like obviously a very comforting deck, but I'm still gonna stick to my guns here, because the journal prompts that are on here I find really helpful, and I really think that these journal prompts in the end will give you comfort, because it will make you have a little look inside, behind the doors to your mind, and just makes you question things, and yeah, I'm gonna stick to it and say that this can potentially be a very comforting deck for me. So right, so that was my comforting decks for uncertain times. I hope you really enjoyed this little tag as much as I did. I really like going through my decks and thinking about them from a new perspective. So I want to thank you, Moonlight Arcana, for this lovely tag, and I have really been enjoying watching all of the different video responses that have showed up for this tag. So, thank you so much for watching. Please take care out there and be well, and I'll see